this podcast, you'll find interviews with high-performing, successful individuals in life sciences. On a weekly basis, we cover their proven methods, principles, strategies, and mindsets to implement new technologies that scale to meet the needs of people in our world.
Welcome to this episode of Life Science Success. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Don, and I'm a digital marketer in life sciences. And today, my guest is Sameer Lal. Sameer is a highly respected pharma veteran and business leader with 3 decades of experience in advancing the life sciences industry through technological innovation. And so with that, let me just welcome Sameer to the podcast here. Welcome.
Thank you, Don, for having me. I appreciate your time today.
Yeah, it's great to have you on. You're the second person from Indegene. It's been a little while, I think, before whenever I interviewed, I believe it was one of your co-founders, on the podcast as well. So yeah.
Yeah, I think let's start with.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. So first, could you just start by telling us a little bit about your background and what originally drew you to the life sciences and pharmaceutical industry?
Of course, Don. Like you mentioned, I have about 3 decades of experience. The entirety of it has been spent on the life sciences side. I started first on the pharma sponsor side and then moved to the service provider space. I actually did a bachelor's in chemical technology, did an MBA in marketing, and stayed out of school, started at GSK in marketing, did another stint with another pharma major, and then started a career on the service provider side with Southern Hennessy, the part of the WPP group. And then moved to the dark side with Indegene in 2006. I've been with them ever since. I've been fortunate to play a variety of roles, a variety of locations, and it's been a phenomenal journey thus far. But like I said, everything has been only on the life sciences side.
That's great. And yeah, it's always interesting as well whenever, you hear like the educational journey transitioning into like the business journey as well. What was it that led you from, science, more towards the business side of things?
Very interesting. Actually, first is what drew me to the industry in the first place, right? So because I did chemical technology, I had a lot of interest on the chemistry side. Maybe at the heart, I knew I didn't have the chops to be a physician. So the pharmaceutical industry was the second best option in that sense, right? So that was one. I think the MBA was very good because that allowed me to get a sense of the business side of things. And after the initial stint on the sponsor side, I realized I want to be on the service provider side, helping solve client problems, the variety of challenges that they present, and also have a chance to be really in the forefront of one of the most complex industries which is out there. So it's been a fascinating journey. I'm not sure all of it was truly planned, but as each card unfolded, you take the next steps, right? You know how it goes.
Yeah, I mean, it happens with all of us, right? I mean, there's a decision normally in front of us, go this path or that path, and then we have to decide. And normally there's some level of interest, in going one direction or the other. So with all of your experience in pharma, how have you seen the industry evolve, especially through the waves of technology like the internet and cloud adoption, generative AI?
No, absolutely. So actually, the advent of generative AI in my mind is truly the third wave, right? The internet was the first, adoption to cloud was the second, and here comes Gen AI. But before I talk about the technology and its adoption in the industry, we all have to recognize the industry has always been known for innovation, right? They've always been at the forefront of cutting edge pieces, whether it was CAR-T therapy. And I feel the industry truly came of age during the COVID-19 pandemic with the vaccines, and where everybody came together, right, and came through for the best of humanity. And I think that is truly a testament of the value that industry brings to the table, the innovation that comes through it, right, and always willing to surmount challenges which comes their way. And I believe that's the way with AI as well. The paramount principle of the industry, which it has been founded on, is first do no harm. Right. So this cautious optimism. Right. So what you want to make sure is, hey, this is new technology. But before we truly adopt it, let's see all its manifestations. Make sure, right, we are aware of all the risks, and so on. And being in a regulated industry, it took its time. But now that it is done, I feel now we are seeing that crest of the wave start to happen in terms of adoption. And I'd love to talk a little bit more about that. But in general, I feel the industry across the value chain, from the clinical R&D side all the way to commercialization, is starting to see the ramification of actually adopting a technology like generative AI. So it's been, I think, it's been a great start, and let's see how it goes.
It's amazing to me as well, just watching how fast a lot of these things are developing as well. And I'm not in the AI industry, but at the same time, I sort of am somebody who is somebody who's adopted it, inside of my company, and then also working with other companies. And we frequently talk about how are they using AI. And I've seen the resistance as well, where people are like, oh, this doesn't do a very good job. And I'm anymore, I mean, essentially, I mean, if you look at what we do in terms of creating content for people and things like that, I mean, we feed it a persona. It understands who exactly the AI is writing for. There's a level of understanding as well in terms of what's acceptable and what's not. I mean, to me, the ideas that it generates and things like that oftentimes need very little adjustment anymore, where early on, I mean, at least whenever I started with it, it was constantly where you were adjusting and saying, no, I don't want that or whatever. And sometimes I would just give up and just go, okay, I'm gonna finish this piece or whatever on my own. So yeah, I just watching from the sidelines is amazing to watch what's happening in the industry.
Yeah, and interesting what you talked about adjusting and so on, right? One of the metaphors I actually use for this is the car wash, Don. If you remember, perhaps 2 decades ago, all of us used to wash the cars ourselves, right? We used to get a bucket of water and soap and so on. It took us an hour, right? But we did it. And only when we had to do it. And now we need to clean the car. Now what we do is we go to a car wash. We spend $15-20. So it gets it done in a jiffy. However, when it comes on the other side, we don't drive, walk away. We go to the vacuum station, we clean the car. We actually take a towel, clean out some of the spots. We finish it. And that's what it is, right? It gets bulk of the job done. It makes the efficient use of my time, right? It allows me to do something far more productive than, hey, wash the car. But it's not the finish. It doesn't finish the job. I like it exactly rightly so, right? And I think that's exactly where we are.
Yeah, absolutely. So you've been a part of Indegene's leadership for over 18 years, helping it grow. Can you describe your current role and then how it helps to drive the company's mission today?
I'll answer in the reverse order. I'll tell you a little bit about Indegene and then the roles that I play here. Indegene is a 26-year-old company, and we our position is a digital-first life sciences commercialization company. All three are important. Digital first, we always take with the lens of technology and automation. Life sciences, because this is the only space we operate. And commercialization is we help clients actually make their products come to life and succeed. So my role is actually three-pronged. My primary role is I drive the enterprise medical solutions business at Indegene. So I oversee all our work across medical affairs, regulatory, safety, and market access. My second role is I'm an executive sponsor for all our generative AI work across the firm. And my tertiary role is I also head our US Canada business. So depending on the time of the day, I might be wearing one of those hats.
Yeah, it's an interesting thing to think about. You have both the technology role as well as a commercial role, both in the U.S. and Canada too. I mean, I would imagine that there's a level of balance that you have to sort of think about all the time. Hey, look, making sure that you keep the plate spinning on the global role that you have, in addition to the work that you're doing on the technology side.
No, exactly. But at the end of the day, we are a service provider. We are only as good as our people. And I'd love to tell you a little bit more about that, right? So you have to carry the people along. Even as you know, the space is evolving, technology is coming, their roles will evolve as well. So that's the correct piece, right? The balancing act one has to bring to the table.
Yeah, absolutely. So Indegene's positioned as a leader leveraging generative AI for pharma. Could you give us examples of how Gen AI is transforming pharma companies' operations and decision making?
Absolutely. And like I mentioned right at the start of our conversation, Don, right, the field of us was cautious optimism. So the industry was truly looking at all that is possible, but within the guardrails, right? Because being regulated, they want to make sure some copyright pieces in terms of patient privacy, in terms of data security, all of that is in control. What we have seen is that last 1 or 2 years, a lot of secure pilots have happened, proofs of concept have happened. As a result, the industry has now formed a point of view where we can truly start to scale, right? And we're seeing that happen across from the clinical space where they're looking at target profile, product profile identification much faster than going to the whole R&D route. We're looking at in the clinical trial space. We're looking in the regulatory space where can documents be created better, right? We're looking at it seeing it in the commercial side as well, right? Where creation of content, you mentioned that you've done that yourself, perhaps advertising agencies, right? Can ads be done in a different way, right? And then we also seeing in the data and analytics side, how can insights be generated better? Vast amount of data is being consumed and created. Can we find insights out of that? So where I believe the industry is now is that inflection point. Pilots have happened, proof of concept have happened, we believe that there's potential, but within the guardrails that we want to be safe and secure about, and they're ready and poised to now start to look at production and scale as well. So I think the year in front of us will start to see true production, true potential of the technology come to bear in the industry.
So maybe for somebody that doesn't understand this side of things as well. So you have um, basic LLMs or basic language models that are out there. How does generative AI differ? Maybe that might be a helpful definition for somebody as well that's out there.
Yeah, and generative AI, exactly like you said, it generates piece, right? So what it does is that it has taken vast, copious amount of data and information from the past, and therefore is able to then from there create pieces, right? So you can ask it to say as simple as this: as can you create an email which I can send to my team members, congratulating them on 10 years of the company? I didn't create a first draft for you, and you can create. Instructions say, can you make it a little bit more friendly or make it more formal and officious? As simple as that. And from there, it can do far more complex pieces, right? So our pharma industry is primarily founded on R&D and innovation. Huge amount of time is spent in labs to look at, hey, which chemical compound will work for which kind of disease. And what generative AI is able to do is, again, look at past data and say, hey, possibility of success is higher in this one rather than the other, and so on, right? So from the most simplest to perhaps some of the most complex problems are certainly not that complex anymore.
Yeah, I just think about I think about it oftentimes as a great brainstorming partner, right? The ability to sort of, just have almost like an equal conversation where you're saying, look, can you tell me more about this? And where I've seen things go wrong, right, is you feed in an idea or something that and then it responds with something that equals whatever you asked, but um, not necessarily something that's bound in truth, I guess, is the way that I would say it. And then the example that I've used before is I was in Chattanooga, Tennessee, around Christmas time, and we happened to be talking with a group of foodies in my family, and so I had said, well, do you have any Michelin star restaurants here? I didn't know, so I Googled it, and of course, Google's generative AI responded with, yes, there are 3. Here they are. None of the restaurants in Chattanooga, Tennessee are Michelin star restaurants. And it was because I said that it was responding with that. Now, after digging, all of a sudden you see the gap. But again, it's that sort of, I guess, cautious optimism that you mentioned a little bit ago, that you've got to kind of understand how is the brain on the other side working, and what sort of, feeding it, as well. Is it your core idea that's telling it, this is the direction you should go?
No, exactly, Don. And I think the problem that you indicated, hallucination, right? That is the one which gave a lot of pause to a lot of people, right? I think the LLMs are getting better. But my advice to everybody is don't take it at face value, right? So it gives you a first draft, but I think it's your responsibility from there onwards to verify the information, do a second draft check, and so on. But having said that, if you use it well, for example, I use it to summarize copious amount of document, right? I think all of us now suffer from attention deficit disorder. Nobody can read a 50-page PDF anymore, right? So can you compress it for 2-page summary, right? Or if you miss a meeting, can you summarize the key points? Things like that. I think it's a very valuable tool in that sense if you use it well.
Yeah, I love my AI note taker. I can't tell you how valuable it's been in different cases, being able to, say, what did this person say at that point in time? I know that they mentioned this thing, can this help me? But for sure on the document side as well. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. For me, I feel, for example, a great evolution has been speech to text. Don, if you use Siri and others in the past, I mean, you had a no, I meant this, and then you would have. Now it is phenomenal. I'm doing this stuff on because obviously you can speak faster than you can type, and it's become so good, right? You're drafting keynotes, writing emails, even. I think the speech to text is another example of how technologies evolve.
Absolutely. So with generative AI impacting areas like drug discovery, trial efficiency, personalized medicine, and marketing, what specific innovations is Indegene focused on developing and deploying right now?
What we did was about 2 years, right when generative AI was just on the horizon, we had set up a skunks work team, right? So, hey, let's see what this is all about. Let's get the brightest people, allow them to experiment and pilot and so on. And to our delight, actually, they exceeded our expectations. They have truly form opinions about use cases, okay, this is what we can do, this we perhaps not as much, and so on. And as a result of that, all of that knowledge and codification has allowed us to launch Cortex, which we did about 2 months ago. And this is our generative AI platform, which is specifically verticalized for the life sciences industry. And it has 3 key features. There's a knowledge engineering interface, which codifies 26 years of our knowledge of the life sciences space across our client base, across all the engagements, right? The second is it has fit for purpose agents specifically for life sciences area. And then finally, it has the multi-agent orchestration capability so that you can deploy to solve problems for the pharma industry. So we're looking at proactively solving at least 3 problems. First is we are creating a content super app where can we create marketing content using generative AI, right? So all shapes and forms. So that's the first one. Second bet we are taking is around MLR review and approval. Now, if you're not familiar, right, any content which goes out has to be reviewed and approved internally. And it is a bugbear. It's been that way for decades. And we are looking to see if we can solve that. And third has been on medical writing. But can we have first draft or documents which go to outside influencers, regulators, payers, creating new generative AI? So we're using all 3. But having said that, I think we have literally few dozens of other use cases which we are deploying for clients and also scaling up. So we're very excited about what the initial uptake of Cortex has been. And I believe the last word is yet to be spoken.
In terms of the application of this, I mean, I would imagine that a lot of our pharma partners, as secretive as a lot of their inventions are, want to make sure that things are secure as well. How do you sort of isolate, if somebody comes to you and says, hey, look, we want to be a partner, how do you isolate their items and things so that they don't also leak across in the LLM?
No, so that's the first piece, right? All of this is done in secure environments now with Azure and others. You can make sure none of that goes out. A lot of them are creating those proprietary smaller LLMs with the internal data, right? So all of that remains inside there. That's the journey which the industry has traversed in the last 1 year, and that has led to far more uptake down, right? So that means once the safety, data security, patient privacy concerns have got allayed, well, I think they've started to move further. And that's why within most of the pharma, we've seen a customized instance of the LLM within their firewalls, within their infrastructure, right? So none of that data goes out, but still allows the best of the LLMs to be used. I think most of the CIs have done a bang up job on pharma, making sure all of the data, information, everything remains secure.
Yeah, definitely. And so what are some of the biggest challenges in the pharma companies in terms of integrating new technologies like generative AI?
Yeah, and just like any other piece, right? First was the separation from hype to reality, right? So everybody was screaming from rooftops that they can solve world hunger, and then you want to peel the layers of the onion, make sure what's truly possible. All right. From there, pilots to scale up started to happen. Now, while all of those have started to take shape, I think what the challenges the pharma industry is now facing is a couple of things. First is change management. It's about internal people who have ways of working is all set. And obviously, inevitably, there's a threat to what happens to my job, right? Will I be redundant? And how do you traverse that? So internal change management is a key part of the whole piece. Second part is process re-engineering. Right? That if you are going to deploy generative AI or agents, it doesn't mean you copy paste and do what you've been doing in the past and starts to work. You have to re-engineer how things have been working. So that means once again change. And the final piece is the governance aspect as well. Like you alluded, how do you make sure stuff is secure? How do you make sure right guardrails are in place and so on? So I think those are the challenges which pharma leaders are starting to grapple with and starting to see what can truly come out right as we get to the next phase of evolution of this technology.
Yeah, I think it was Micah Kaufman at Fiverr that said this. But he is the CEO of Fiverr, and he came back to his employees and he just says, look, I believe in radical candor, and AI is coming for your job, and that's something that you need to rationalize. The way that you can think about this is that you can either find ways to advance using it, or you can be, put out of a job if you don't sort of find the way to use the tools. And I was given something yesterday. It was very interesting. We were having a conversation and had edited a very long document. And essentially at the end, somebody had said, "Hey, can you put this back inside of this particular template?" And I said, "Sure." And so, the somebody else in the meeting had said, I'm surprised you reacted so quickly. I'm like, well, I'm just going to go back to the internal AI and I'm going to ask it to summarize this document and then break it into these blocks. And then I'm going to put it back inside of the template. So, I mean, it's not, to me, these efficiencies are very advantageous. Yes, you have to check, but at the same time, it's almost like, if you're not leveraging the tools, I really feel like, you're going to not only be left behind, but you're going to live a totally different life than than somebody that is leveraging these things, Paul.
I think you hit the nail on the head, Don. I don't think AI is going to take your job. I think the person who's going to leverage AI better than you can, who's willing and accepting that, is going to take your job. I think that's the key, right? You have been very adaptive to change. You figured this out, and hey, that's the key. Exactly. It's not AI. You're leveraging AI, and you're doing it better than anybody else out there. And that's the key, I think. I think that the folks who understand that, I think they're getting much more comfortable with the whole piece of evolution.
So let's talk a little bit about leadership with you. You mentioned, your role, looking over the United States and Canada on the commercial side. So in terms of of your leadership style, one of the things that I saw that is that you're a very people first leader. First of all, what does that mean? Just interested in understanding that first.
Yeah, but people first means, and once again, it comes from the industry that I'm operating the company. It's a service provider industry. It's all about the people, right? And we're only as good as the people who comprise our team, right? So that's what it means. And I like to use the metaphor. I heard about it in another podcast in Founders Mentality. Think about toddlers and they're running downhill. So imagine the excitement they have. They're running faster than they can imagine, and then they fall, they get up, and they keep running again, right? Because the excitement and the right, and they don't have the fear of failure. They scrape their knees, but they're okay. They keep running. That's the kind of environment you want to create in the company, right? The inevitable amount of excitement. Get out of the way. Let people run. Let them find the true potentials, right? Just like a toddler who's willing to experiment. Suddenly the whole world is in front of them, right?
Absolutely. And then, how does it influence the way that you drive innovation and transformation in such a highly technical, regulated industry?
And that's the key, is that how do you make sure you get the right people first, who are the right mindset, who are willing to experiment, who are not willing to, not afraid of failure. They're ready to fail, but fail fast and then learn and then keep moving. That's the key. The second is, how do you give them the environment and the resources for them to succeed? And the third, and this is the most important part, get out of the way. No, right? Sometimes we actually stifle progress more than anything else. So let them find ways. Some of these folks do such great jobs done, I can't tell you. So that's what is my role, right? I find the right people, get them the resources, and then I get out of the way.
Yeah, yeah. I've oftentimes used the analogy of a runway in the airport. The leader's job really is just to clear the obstacles, not to worry about the speed of the plane or getting the plane to take off. That's the job of your team. But the goal of the leader is, if there are obstacles in the way, to help them work through those obstacles, so that they're not impeding the takeoff of whatever the goal is. So yeah.
Yeah, and my role is just to be an enabler, right? To remove the obstacles, provide the resources, perhaps pick them up when they fall, and that's about it. Rest of the stuff, they figure them out on their own.
Absolutely. What's the greatest piece of leadership advice that you've received?
Actually, it's been 3 decades, so it's not been one, as you can imagine. It's been a few. I like to quote a few, but the one which I truly believe in is, there's some things within your control, and there are a lot of things which are not in your control. And don't worry about the things which are not in your control. We spend far too much more time on things which are completely out of your control, thinking the worst case scenarios. Inevitably, the worst case scenarios do not pan out, and you figure, why did I waste the time and energy? So my first piece is, I focus only on things that I can control. I just try to do them well, and then I don't worry about the others. The second piece is being making sure that I'm very, very open to learn, right? And therefore, the growth mindset is very, very important. I'm a firm believer that human beings can do anything as long they apply themselves to it, and it takes a little bit of time. The most important piece is the attitude you bring, right? So a learning mentality from the growth mindset is an important piece as well. And the final piece is listen more than talk. I think sometimes a lot of the team members, etc., just want a patient listening. They're not expecting you to act on everything, but sometimes they miss somebody just listening to them. I feel the art of active listening is a lost art. Sometimes just listening and hearing the nuances come through body language and so on. So those are a few nuggets. I know more than one that you've said, but at 3 decades, you create a lot of junk, right?
I think it was Janet Kukowski last week that just said the thing about there's a reason why God gave you 2 eyes, one mouth, and 2 ears. So otherwise we'd be talking a lot more. Obviously, if we had 2 mouths. So
That's true.
next question: what inspires you?
Yeah, and I think the key has been for me being in front and center with our clients, helping solve the business problems and working shoulder to shoulder with my team members. I think I have an incredible team, incredibly talented team, which is then every day comes up excited to solve a problem for our clients. I think that excites me, right? Seeing the way some of my younger team members, the work ethic they bring to the table, the way they approach a problem, completely different from mine. And the amount of energy, boundless enthusiasm folks have, that energizes me after 3 decades here. Says, okay, if that guy can do it, I can do it as well. So I'm trying to match energy to energy, step to step with those guys. So that really excites me.
Yeah, it's really important to have sort of just really broad view of the individuals that are out there that are doing things. I feel like to try and set the bar for all of us, right? And I think that's an important thing. I did want to mention, so I got a question from online from Louis Bertrucci, I believe. Hopefully I haven't butchered your name too bad. His question was, how can leaders further elevate patient-centric strategies? He just says, look, Sameer's insight into digital transformation is so inspiring. And so his question is, how can leaders further elevate patient-centric strategies?
Thank you for asking that question. I believe I think the key thing is putting ourselves into the patient's shoes, right? Spending a day in their lives of what actually goes, right, as they suffer to whatever disease or condition they have. And then work backwards from there. So, what can I do to make the things better for that patient, right? What in my small way can I make an impact, whether it's through marketing, whether it's through my medical affairs capability, whatever small way, right? I think most important is to put ourselves in the patient's shoes, maybe day in the life and so on, observe, fly in the wall. I think that sometimes generates a huge amount of insights and ideas and perhaps inspiration as well.
Yeah, it's been one of the most, I feel like, transformational things that I've seen inside of companies whenever they invite patients in front of a group of leaders to talk about their experience with, the thing that's been developed, or even, to provide early feedback in terms of things that are being thought about. And so, listening to both sides of those from the patient's perspective has been, really transformational for a lot of companies that I've worked with in the past as well.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Sameer, what concerns you?
Actually, what worries me a lot if people's mindset is resistant to change. You alluded to that, right? I'm also a firm believer we have to embrace the change, right? And that's the only way you'll get ahead of the change. The more resistant we are, right, it only makes it worse. Change is inevitable in whatever shape or form. And that worries me when I see people who are resistant to change, who are used and comfortable in their own ways of working and not willing to evolve, right? That really sometimes rankles me, if that's the right phrase.
Yeah, absolutely. It's definitely something that I feel like change is always coming at us one way or the other. And so I think you said it earlier on, where you can worry about the things that are the noise in the periphery, but where your focus really needs to be on is how you move forward. So yeah. Last question: what excites you?
Don, I'm going to date both of ourselves, but we are the generation which actually started with the rotary phone, then saw the big car phone of Nokia. We saw the first launch of iPhone. We've also seen Google Glass come through, right? So just think about the iteration. So that's what excites me, right? We have been very fortunate to see the evolution or the few decades of our lives. I'm really excited what the next evolution comes through. Even generative AI in the last 2 years has been phenomenal, right? Each iteration, right now it's about agentic AI. I don't know what's the next wave coming to. So that's what excites me every day. Seeing what's the next piece, what else can I do here? What more can I learn? What more can I experiment? What more can I give back? I think that what excites me a huge lot.
Yeah, I definitely am very excited about the future of AI and, where things are going with this. I also, in terms of the transformation of technology, in our lifetime, it has been amazing to be a bystander for a lot of it. And, I definitely look forward to, seeing things as well. So Sameer, thank you so much for joining me on the Life Science Success Podcast. I greatly appreciate you being here and for sharing with us, the things that you're doing at Indegene in this industry and, all the great things that you're doing, with your team in the world as well.
Thank you so much for having me. I really enjoyed our time together. Thank you so much. Wish you the very best, Don.
Thanks a lot.
Thank you for listening to Life Science Success. For complete details about this podcast, including show notes, how to get in touch with guests, and more episodes, please visit www.lifesciencesuccess.com. If there's someone you'd like for us to invite to the show as a guest, please let me know by sending me a message at the podcast website. Please click subscribe on your favorite podcast app, share the podcast, or tell a friend about it, and last but not least, rate the podcast. Thank you again.